Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Alana Mercedes, and the clock reads 12, or a little past it, so you know that it is time for Club Creative Hour. And today on Club Creative, we're joined by a very familiar voice to many of you, a vibrant personality on the Fresh Start Morning Show, and she's also an actress, a writer, a director navigating the world of media. Now, as creatives, we often find ourselves torn between passion and practicality, art and real life. So, how do we balance the need to create with the demands of survival? That's what we're diving into today, folks. Welcoming Olivia from the Fresh Start Morning Show.
Wow, hello. Thank you for that introduction.
Yes,
I'm like,
girl.
Who's she talking about? I guess that's me.
You are amazing.
Surprise, yes.
Girl, yes. I have to always give people the introduction that they deserve so that you know just how important you are, just how special you are being a guest up here. So thank you for joining me today.
Of course.
Now, you wear many hats. Again, you're a radio personality, a writer, an actress, a director, all of these things. So first, tell me how you fell into the world of radio.
Fell into the world of radio. Actually, this is very new for me. I started, obviously, on the Fresh Start Morning Show about a year ago.
Wow. I can't believe it's been a year already.
It's almost a year, yeah. I was very active in the department as a grad student here at NSU. And I was, a writer in the Spartan Echo. I worked with a lot of the production crew for other projects. I produced a show called Shine Time, so I was very active. And Dr. Marsh, one of my professors, suggested that I should try being on air, because I guess it worked well for being on camera, and he thought that this would be a good next step for me.
And how has it been since you've been on radio? Obviously, I've seen you grow a lot since you've been at the station and all, but how have you felt internally that shift happening between when you first started last year and then to right now? How are you feeling now?
Definitely more confident. Just being on the mic for the first time used to terrify me. And it has definitely shaped me in different ways as an artist. But as a writer, it's a lot of writing, especially with the morning show. We have to prepare our news ahead of time. And so just doing a lot of research and writing, and it's just different from what you would do in a classroom. And so to get this hands-on experience has show me the behind the scenes, which I was really interested in, but also growing as an on-air personality, which is it's interesting to say.
Yeah.
I don't think of myself
feel crazy?
that way.
Like, yeah. But you are, and you're so good at it. Like,
Thank
honestly,
you.
Again, and I hear the confidence, not only it comes through on the airwaves, obviously, but just being in here, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, and you do a very good job at it. So.
And I learned from you.
Oh, girl, please.
Really, because, I would sit here before I was on air. I would sit here all
true.
the time with you, and I would just watch you, and I would just be amazed. Like, wow, she knows what song to put. She has her segments. She writes her own stuff, like, every day. So,
Thank you, Olivia. And I love that. I really, not to, get into that part, but just being able to, I guess, inspire without knowing or like aid in somebody else's development, that does make me feel really good because you're also just a good person to have in life. So I'm happy about that. And I'm proud of you for having this development in just a year. It hasn't been long at all. Now, of course, alongside being a radio personality, you have many other talents. What y'all don't know is that I had to do a project for one of my graduate school classes, and I needed an actress. Naturally, I call on Olivia because if you don't know, she's an amazing actress. But I didn't know how good of an actress you were until we were filming that commercial, and Olivia had to basically act as the silent crash out. And I was scared. I was like, is this real? Is this really happening? Like, you're really selling it. So tell me a little bit about your background in, becoming an actress as well as writing, directing, your other creative pursuits.
It feels like a different life, really. Because it is kind of separate from what I do now. I started out in 2014 on stage. I have a theater background, classically trained, did musicals. I even studied it in undergrad. I did a community theater and a little bit of TV and short film. And so that's something that I've been doing. But since I started school, I kind of had to just pivot a little bit because I'm sure we'll get into it. But, as an artist, as someone who is really in this creative field, you need to have stability.
Yes. And
knowing, especially with all of the strikes and all the unpredictability of AI and what is going on in Hollywood, it's such an unpredictable occupation that you just got to explore other things that you love. And as an artist, for me, that is something that has helped me grow as a person, just discovering myself. And in a way, it helps me as an artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even, and we definitely are going to get into this, but even with that piece you said about, you know, having to balance being, am I going to be able to be stable? Am I going to be able to support myself? And then am I going to be able to follow my passion, follow my dream, this area that, you know, is, like you said, it's unpredictable.
Right.
Even with that, well, actually, you know what? Let's get into that after the break, because I do want to talk about how you've been able to balance, or even haven't, because again, a lot of creatives kind of have a similar push and pull when it comes to the theme of today, which is life versus art. So make sure you, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We have Olivia of the Fresh Start Morning Show and so many other things in the building for Club Creative Hour. Hot 91, the soul of VA. Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Alana Mercedes, and for Club Creative Hour today, we are joined by Olivia of the Fresh Start Morning Show. So happy to still have you here, Olivia. And we're just now getting on a roll. We're getting on a roll because life versus art is a real thing, a real struggle I feel that a lot of creatives have, and maybe just not know how to put it into words. Right. But we had a very just natural conversation yesterday about something that you experienced, and that was similar to the push and pull between art and life, or being a creative and then having a quote unquote regular job. So for you, you are really getting your footing in media. Like, you know, you've done a lot of, actually tell us a little bit about that, your experience working in like politics, for instance, just things like that. Tell me a little about, you know, what you do outside of the actual studio.
Well, outside the studio, I worked last year, which took a good portion of my time, covering the election. And it's, you know, I would have never thought, you know, at 15, with the dream of being on Broadway and being a star in New York and living the life of an artist, that I would be at 25 working with the news network covering an election where someone who was a convicted felon would be in the White House again. You know, and also, like, as a writer, I conduct interviews all the time. I work on my own projects, like a documentary that I'm working on. I'm working on my thesis right now. Like, I'm always doing something that allows me to use my creativity, but in different ways. And I think we were just at that conversation where, what is a creative?
Yes.
And everyone is creative. Everyone has the imagination. They have creativity. But I think what sets someone apart from being a creative is someone who it kind of just pours out of them. It's in everything that they do. The only thing that they can think of is to create, and it's a part of who they are. And for me, I would say that's who I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have, even when you're working in media, you still use that kind of creative muscle that you have naturally? Like, is it something that you can't turn off?
I can't turn it off.
Wow.
I'm always thinking of ideas, always writing notes. I'm always having a script in my mind. I might do a draft. I've seen you some of the drafts.
Yes, yes.
There's always something, whether it's a song that I'm thinking of, or a mashup, or fashion designs. All of this stuff I used to do as a kid. And I haven't lost that imagination. And I think that's why it brings so much joy now.
Girl, that's a blessing. A lot of people, especially in adulthood, struggle with that, losing that childlike imagination or curiosity about things, that I think is what fuels creativity, just having that same childlike curiosity. It's something that unfortunately gets lost in adulthood, because I think people get caught up in, I have to work, I have to feed my family or myself, I have to pay bills. Like, so it's like you don't think of the creativity portion as being something that's sustainable, or something, like we said, that is stable in general, you know, that can help you to live how you want to. And yesterday you were telling me about an experience you had where you were looking for a folder to put, was it your thesis in?
Yes.
Okay, let us, everybody, know about that story, because I don't know why that just hit me different. Like, what happened?
I was looking for a folder. I'm working on my thesis, and I needed to put my documents in there, the signatures for forms and all of that stuff. I need a folder, and so I just happened to go into a cabinet and found a folder, and I had to take my headshots out.
Yes.
My headshots and my resumes. Headshots that I took probably in 2022, and resumes that I haven't updated, because I haven't really done much since play I did in 2023. And I did a few, I think I did 2 short films after that, but not much. But I had to put that away. I actually had to put it on the floor to put my thesis in. And it was so symbolic to me, and it was a little bit emotional, where you have to make room for new things at different stages of your life, but it doesn't mean you have to throw that away. Mm-hmm. So I still have my headshots. And I guess when I look at it, it's a reminder that although that was a dream and it's not something that I don't think it will go away, it's not forgotten. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's really deep. Just the symbolism is what really got me, like taking that part of your life and having to put it on the back burner for now. You know what I mean? Do you think, or what do you think rather, is the biggest struggle for creatives, especially being a creative, who are also trying to build a stable career? Like, do you think that it's still possible to exist in your passion while having a separate career that is, I don't know, I guess putting food on the table?
Right. I think it can definitely be done. You just have to find different ways to funnel that energy and that love that you have. And if it's, for example, I was a leasing consultant for some time, and it's not a creative job. You try to rent out apartments and townhomes, you can get creative with your pitch.
But besides that,
once I would get on Canva, it was graphic design for flyers, for events, and that's when I was like, okay, I can have fun with this. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I can find different ways to promote this, and that's where my marketing stuff kind of came in. But I think there's a way to do it. I was going to say something else, but I forgot what I was going to say.
It's okay. It'll come back. I'm sure that it is. It will. Now, you've worked in major media spaces as well, DNC, RNC, the inauguration, all of these things like that. How have you been able to bring, if you have, creativity into those components, like things having to do with something as heavy and serious as politics? Mm-hmm.
Well, fortunately, I was able to work on the production side, and that's what I'm really interested in now. Really interested in directing, producing, and the whole process of what it means to put on a show. Mm-hmm. And it's not much different from theater. You're putting on a production. You have your actors. In the news, you have your anchors. You have your set design, you have your light design, you have your audio, you have your show. And so being with videographers, being with colorists, writers, people who are stage managers, it's the same people, same actors, just different settings. So yeah, it still feels like home, oddly enough. It still feels like home.
That's amazing. Yeah. Actually, that you're able to still, funnel that into there and make that kind of juxtaposition. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can see how it can still be an enjoyable avenue for you. So so in media, do you still feel like do you feel like you are a creative in the media field who's kind of having to, subtle isn't the word that I'm looking for, but just you're having to pour that portion of you into this career field? Or do you feel like, I guess whatever the opposite of that would be, do you feel like it's something that you have to, I don't want to say force into that career, into that space, but like is it natural for you, or do you feel like it's something that you have to intentionally put into that field in order to make it enjoyable, or make that those similarities appear in front of you? Like, how have you had to view that?
For me, it's natural. Again, I would just say it's just a part of who I am, how I'm wired. I think that, it's just a part of who I am, and I don't think I need to have a certain job to still feel fulfilled. I would say I have a very diverse background of interest, and it helps me as an artist. I think, and it's one of the things that most acting coaches and professors, they'll tell you, if you want to be a better actor, you need to be better at living life.
Wow. I've never heard that before.
They'll have their own variation of it, but that's essentially what it is. If you want to be a better artist, you got to live life. You got to try different things. You got to see what you like, what you don't like. And if it means working a job for a few years and not liking it, well, now you know. And those experiences that you've learned, that real life experience, those hardships that you have, those things that brought you joy, those things that challenged you, that made you grow, those are the things that make you better as a person, but as an artist, because as artists, we are so connected to life and people, and that's kind of what our purpose is, at least for me, and I would say for you as well. I don't want to speak for you, but
you're right.
Our passion is to make the world a better place. We
Wow.
want to make people feel things. We want to expose things. We want to reflect on what is around us. And I think news is just one of those things where we're always looking at other people and what's going on. So, and again, in the same way, it's all about people and storytelling, and that is where my passion is.
Wow. Olivia, that's really deep, and it's true. That it goes right back into that phrasing, life imitates art and art imitates life. It's all tied together. And I never thought of it as what you said, because again, we were speaking off air and I said that I never felt like a creative. Like for a very long time, I had an issue identifying as somebody who is an artist or just a creative in general. But I think, like we mentioned earlier, that people have a misconstrued view of what an artist or a creative is. Because, so in that case, would we say that's somebody who has gone through a bunch of life experiences, who has tried a bunch of different things? Like, could we identify them as a creative just for having the capacity to do those things, to put themselves out there?
I don't know. I don't know how to label it. I think someone would have to define that for themselves. They would have to identify as that. And some people may say, if you're an artist, like some people would say, if you're an actor, well, you're not really an actor unless you're a paid actor. So there's things that people say, well, what qualifies as a real actor, a real creative, a real artist. But, if it's something that if you want to do something for a living and it's with art, I'd say you're an artist.
Period.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. Again, people have this odd idea of an artist being Picasso, but it's so much more than that.
Yes.
There's so many faces of the artist, you could say.
Right.
So I totally agree with you. Ladies and gentlemen, sit tight, stay tuned. We're in Club Creative Hour with Olivia of the Fresh Start Morning Show on Hot 91, the soul of VA. Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Alana Mercedes. It's Club Creative Hour, and we're joined by Olivia, who is not just a radio personality. She is creative. She's an artist. She's a director. She's an actress. All of these things. So, picking up where we left off, kind of. Olivia, I had a question while we were on break, and it was, do you think that, because we just talked about how going through life makes you a better artist. It makes you, or a better actor, but in general, I would say a better artist, a better creative, experiencing these different things. If all creatives were financially free, let's say they didn't have to choose between their passion and their job that keeps them stable, how do you think that would change the way that art is made? What do you think it would end up looking like if people didn't have to worry about money?
Okay, that's a good question. And there's different ways to answer it.
By all means.
Well, I don't think... So some people, like comedians, for example, the Wayans family in particular, they talk about how hard their life was in New York. All those siblings living in one house. But that's where they got their art from. That's where they got their comedic style from, because it was so much love and so much laughter. And that's what prepared them to be the stars that they are now. And so some people would say that the struggle, coming out of the struggle, Kevin Hart, all of the, I lived in my car, and I grew up in the projects, and now I'm here. So some people would say that's where, I guess, the strongest sense of creativity, where you just kind of all you have is life and to appreciate your family. But at the same time, the whole struggling artist narrative, doesn't have to be true. It's okay to it's okay to be a painter or to be a graphic designer and work part-time at the library and do a few other things. If you're going to do Uber Eats or whatever you have to do on the side, I don't think struggling has to be the option. And as long as you are passionate about it and you know that your work is making a difference, really, that's the only thing that fulfills you as an artist. So,
do you think that we've romanticized the idea of the struggling artist? Is it a thing where we just I don't know, it just makes it even more passionate of you that you're just willing to sacrifice all of your life and any money in order to create? Do you think we've romanticized that idea?
Absolutely, we do. I understand supplies and equipment is expensive. if you are passionate, if you're a photographer, the lenses are expensive. You got to get insurance for that. If you got to get your brushes, whatever you do. If you're getting fabric for material, like that stuff is expensive. So being an artist is not cheap, especially with this economy. But I also think that this era of what they call multi-hyphenates, where everyone is just like an entrepreneur, or I do lashes on the side, and I'm also an actor, and I'm a model, I'm a rapper, I do all this and this and that, and I think that can be distracting. And I think because that's the culture that we're in, at least this generation is in, we've normalized it, especially with the social media influencer occupation. Like, are you an influencer? Yes. Are you creative? Like, we kind of just use these words, and sometimes I think that hurts actual artists because it's kind of a crutch in a sense, the way that people use the word creative. Like, I think for some people who call themselves creative, it's maybe this is a fresh take or a hot take, whatever. But like, it's an excuse to say that you're not sure what you want to do and you're just kind of all over the place. You don't have a plan. You're like Lynn from Girlfriends.
That's true. Like you don't have an official job. You're kind of just dabbling in a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Okay. But is that, and again, let's, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but even with people who choose to explore all of those different things, I feel like even the not knowing what you want to do is still means of creating, in a sense, because how else will you know if you don't try a bunch of different things, which
that is true.
360 full circle goes back into what makes you such a good artist or a good creative is experiencing these different components of life. Like, don't get me wrong, I totally agree. Some people, like some fields, I will say now especially, do kind of, I think, undercut the idea of being a creative or being an artist, but at the same time, I'm like, well, it still, I guess, takes a certain degree of creativity to be in these fields, to be an influencer, although I could also get into people copying other people that they see and not really,
it's
so
just such a gray area.
Yes,
but again, every artist has to take a risk.
Yes.
It's all about of reflecting on life and what's around you, but you have to take a risk. You have to do something you've never done before, and that's how new art is created. You're doing something different, and to do that, you have to, one, be your authentic self, and two, you just have to just not put a limit or a boundary on the gift that was given to you.
Girl, and that's really drop the mic right there. And that is really what it's all about. And I feel like if you've listened to me enough, you know just how important that message is to me, being your most authentic self, because even when it comes to people creating for, let's say, a niche audience, something that you just assume the greater masses will not understand or will not resonate with. It really is all about attracting your group, your audience, and how can you do that if you are not being yourself? Right. So do you think, also getting back to, if money and security weren't a factor, for instance, do you think that there is a way for creatives to freely create, freely open, just express themselves, be themselves, make their own art without the weight of capitalism influencing their work? Because I've heard of people, there are artists who, I'm going through something, I feel like I need to write a song. I feel like I need to put how I feel onto paper by painting or something like that. And then there's people who are like, rent's due, this is what's popping right now, this is the trend, so let me go ahead and do this and hopefully make a quick buck off of it. Do you think that, again, there's a way for people to freely create, or how would they go about freely creating without the weight of capitalism? Is that even possible right now?
We live in a capitalistic society, so this is like a what if
yeah, low-key, yes.
I mean, I'm not going to say that finances don't make it harder. It definitely makes it harder. And it can be discouraging when you have to choose work, feeding your family. You have to put gas in your car. You have to pay insurance. You have all these things. As students, you got to pay back your student loans. My God.
Like, help.
My student loans.
Somebody help.
Sally Mae, please stop. You don't need to know me anymore. But yeah, like you can't ignore the things of life that are just inevitable. But if you have financial stability, it does make it easier to create. But again, I don't think that the juices stop flowing unless you try to push it down. You got to let it out some way or another. If you are a trained actor like myself and you're no longer acting at the moment, you got to find another way to pour that out, or you're going to suppress it. And then you're going to feel some kind of way. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel anxiety. Your mental health, you're just not going to feel the same. You're going to feel off. You're going to feel incomplete, maybe empty. These are the things that once you realize these things, that's when you need to make the decision of how you're going to create art and be yourself.
Period.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Girl, I could not agree with you more. It's like when you find yourself in that restless state, you don't know what's going on or what's wrong. Sometimes you really need to take inventory internally and see what parts of me am I neglecting?
Right.
What parts of me are being neglected or need to be fed or catered to? And most of the time when you've spent years and years having to sacrifice in order to feed your family, everything like that, you'll find that it is that part of yourself, that childlike part of yourself that wanted to be on Broadway or whatever that dream was for you that has been starved, basically.
And you have to pivot sometimes.
Yeah.
I know during COVID, a lot of casting directors that I was following on social media, they were saying, okay, actors, there's a strike, there's COVID, there's a lot of things going on right now. We have to pivot. You have to find other ways to fuel your talent, because acting is one of those things where unless you're on a set and you want to be on films, you need to be on a set. You need a crew. You need these things, but if you don't have that, you're not using your art.
Right.
So you have to, fuel it somewhere else. So yeah, sometimes you just got to pivot, and you might find something that you're equally in love with.
That's so true. It's all about discovering, self-discovery. I would say you never know what forms of you will show up in the different creative pursuits that you pursue, for lack of better words. You never know. And Olivia, lastly, what advice would you give to creatives who might feel torn between their quote unquote passion, or their quote unquote need for practicality and their passion? What advice would you give to someone who might be listening who's like, well, how am I going to juggle both? What am I to do? Because I feel like you're kind of doing that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's kind of like I'm talking to myself. So I know I'm not alone. There's never anyone who's not going through something that you're going through. Don't beat yourself up for not doing, whether it's pursuing a dream that you had. Don't beat yourself up. Show yourself some grace and allow yourself in the time that you're in to be present, because you will appreciate it later on. And it may just inspire the next big thing that you do. Obviously, yes, you do have to balance the things of being an adult, or if you're a teenager listening, I don't know why you're not in school, but the things of life and then the things of art. And just remember that life fuels your art, and your art will, in a way, fuel your life. It's the thing that brings you love and peace and happiness and joy. And it's okay that those things are separate, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Wow. Olivia, thank you so much for your wisdom today. I feel like this was a conversation that a lot of creatives might be internally having, but just not know how to express it. So I really hope this was able to help somebody out.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course, girl.
Okay.
By all means. This is for free?
Right. Because, once you start thinking about these things, you just, it's just one of the things you think about throughout the day. There's ways that this is what I do. This is what I personally do. I am not an artist as far as like a painter or a drawer. Or drawer.
A drawer?
Drawer.
An art thing. Yes, something like that.
Yes.
Y'all know what we're talking about.
Freehand or whatever. I'm not that, but I do. I started doing that during COVID. I started with watercoloring. And that is just little things throughout the week. Maybe just write a short story every now and then. Or, maybe write a poem. Go to a poetry open mic or something. Support somebody else. Learn how to play an instrument. All of these things will also help you as well. Just to get it going.
Get an outlet.
Right.
Get any sort of outlet.
Don't let it die.
Yes.
Don't let it die. Because when you stop dreaming, you stop creating art.
And that's that on that, ladies and gentlemen. Seriously, drop the mic. Olivia, again, thank you so much for your wisdom today. Truly, you've poured into me. So I appreciate this, honestly. And I wish obviously I'm watching you grow here and doing everything that you're doing. But I also cannot wait to see what other creative outlets you end up showing the world. I'm excited about that, because you are quite a brilliant mind, if I do say so myself. So, of course. Well, ladies and gents, thanks for sitting in for Club Creative Hour. Make sure you stay tuned. I have your mental health moment with Mercedes coming up on Hot 91, the soul of VA.